Good morning. I have no idea if my camera's working or not, but it doesn't show me on here. I won't be able to see it till later, so if it's not, I'm sorry. I am here. If it is, then hello. All right, we are going to finish reading Pony Pinning Day today, and I have sent off and requested a packet of information from Virginia, from this particular town, and it's got information on the Pony Pinning Day. I think they call it the Pony Swimming Day. And like I told you before, the story, it's based on a true event or true events. The story itself is not true. But anyway, so I'm hoping to have that, and if I do, I'm going to get that to you as soon as I can so you can look at it. Okay, so here's some words that we may come across. And I've made some spelling errors in here as I was typing very quickly. She knew her brother was afeared as the dog chased him because she was scared too. I should have had a space there. Afeared. She knew her brother was afeared. Basically, it's just an old way of saying afraid. The whole town was looking for the fugitive horse that ran away last night. Fugitive means something or someone that has flown the coop. They have escaped. By using the boat's tow rope, he could pull the small boat to shore. Tow, this here means to pull something. He felt sorry, and I don't know why there's a W there, misprint on my part. He felt sorry when his dog ran away, but felt ecstasy when the dog came home on its own 3 weeks later. What do you think this word means? It means like total happiness, like more than you can even imagine. That's what that means. All right, good deal. So let's look in our book, our reader book, on page 164. Now, we've been talking about and reading where the boy on his horse has gone out and he wants to find the Phantom, and he did. And lo and behold, she had a foal. So this lesson, this part of the story is called Trouble and Triumph. Now, remember the deal. So I'm going to read. You have to follow along just like you're reading. It's kind of like I'm talking out loud, but you're reading it with your eyes. And as we read, I want you to find out what kind of trouble Paul is going to face, and will the triumph be what Paul and Maureen would like. Here we go. On the shores of Chincoteague, the people pressed forward, their faces strained to stiffness as they watched Assateague Beach. Here they come! The cry broke out from every throat. Maureen, wedged between Grandpa Beebe on one side and a volunteer fireman on the other, stood on her mount's back. Her arms paddled the air as if she were swimming and struggling with the wild ponies. Suddenly, a fisherman, looking through binoculars, began shouting in a hoarse voice, "A newborn colt is afeared to swim! Wait! A wild pony is breaking out from the mob, swimming around the mob, escaping!" An awed murmur stirred the crowds. Maureen dug her toes in her mount's back. She strained her eyes to see the fugitive, but all she could make out was a milling mass of dark blobs on the water. The fisherman leaned far out over the water. "It's the Phantom!" he screamed. The people took up the cry, echoing it over and over. "It's the Phantom! She escaped again!" Maureen felt tears on her cheek and impatiently brushed them away. The fisherman was waving for quiet. "It's the Phantom's colt that won't swim," he called out in a voice so hoarse it cracked. "The Phantom got separated from a brand new colt. She's gone back to get it." The people whooped and hollered at the news. "The Phantom's got a colt!" they sang out. "The Phantom's got a new colt!" Again, the fishermen were waving for silence. "She's reached her colt!" he crowed, but the roundup men were closing in on her. They're making her shove the colt in the water. "Look at her! She's making it swim!" Grandpa Beebe cupped his hands around his mouth. "Can the little feller make it?" he boomed. The crowd stilled, waiting for the hoarse voice. For long seconds, no answer came. The fisherman remained as fixed as the piling he stood on. Wave after wave of fear swept over Maureen. She felt as if she were drowning. And just when she could stand the silence no longer, the fisherman began reporting in short, nervous sentences. They're halfways across. Wait a minute, the colt. It's being sucked down in a whirlpool. I can't see it now. My soul and body. A boy's jumped off the scow. He's swimming out to help the colt. The onlookers didn't need the fishermen with the binoculars anymore. They could see for themselves. A boy swimming against the current. A boy holding a colt's head above the swirling water. Maureen gulped great lungfuls of air. It's Paul! She screamed. It's Paul! On all sides, the shouts went up. Why, it's Paul! Grandpa leaped up on his mount's back as nimbly as a boy. He stood with his arms upraised, his fists clenched. God help ye, Paul! His words carried out over the water. You're almost home! Grandpa's voice was as strong as a tow rope. Paul was swimming steadily toward it, holding the small silver face of the colt above the water. He was almost there. He was there. Maureen slid down from her mount, clutching a handful of mane. You made it, Paul! You made it! She cried. The air was wild with whinnies and snorts as the ponies touched the hard sand, then scrambled up the shore, their wet bodies gleaming in the sun. Paul half carried the little colt up the steep bank, then suddenly it found its own legs. Shouts between triumph and relief escaped every throat as the little filly tottered up the bank. For a brief second, Paul's and Maureen's eyes met above the crowds. It was as if they and the mare and her foal were the only creatures on the island. They were unaware of the great jostling and fighting as the stallions sorted out their own mares and colts. They were unaware of everything but a sharp ecstasy. Soon the Phantom and her colt would belong to them, never to be sold. Dodging horses and people, Grandpa Beebe made his way over to Paul. Paul, boy, he said, his voice unsteady. I swam the whole way with you. You're the most wonderful and the craziest young'un in the world. Now get home right smart quick, he added, trying to sound stern. You're about done up and Grandma's expecting you. Maureen and I'll see to it that the Phantom and her colt reached the pony pens. All right, that's the end of the story. All right, I know I have some background noise here, and that kind of keeps things a little bit distracting, but nonetheless, let's answer a couple of questions just to make sure we know the whole gist of the whole story. All right, so how do you think the people on Chincoteague Island are feeling as they watch the ponies set off into the water? How do you think that makes them feel? Probably kind of, what if you had a dog or a horse that had to swim, or a cow or any kind of animal that was yours, and it had to swim across this crazy river? You'd be kind of on edge, wouldn't you? Kind of, oh, I don't know about it. What's Maureen doing as the ponies begin to swim? She's standing up on her horse's back. Shows you a picture of it right there on page 188 or 166. But she's not standing up in that one. But in the story, it told that she was standing up, just like Grandpa was standing up on the colt, on his horse. Let's look at page 164 and let's find the spot where the man that had the binoculars, let's say what he said. Now it's on page 164, it's on the right hand side. It's that first paragraph on the right hand side. It says, suddenly a fisherman. Do you see that? Suddenly a fisherman looking through binoculars began shouting in a hoarse voice. I want you to shout like how you think he was saying, and I want you to read that. Ready? Go. All right, he had to holler. His voice was probably hurting so bad. Now, what does Maureen see as she strains her eyes? What can she see? Just some dark blobs in the water. She just can't see very much. What makes tears come to Maureen's eyes? She hears somebody yell that the Phantom has escaped again. Why would Maureen cry about the Phantoms escaping? Because she and her brother wanted the phantom. So it was kind of the whole point of the matter, wasn't it? All right, let's look then over on page 167, the last page of this. What does Maureen do when she realizes that it's Paul helping the colt? What's the first thing she does? Probably first thing I'd do. Oh, it's Paul! Screaming out, woohoo! Why does the author choose to compare Grandpa's voice to a tow rope? Because it says that right, let's see, it says, let's see, at the very top, Maureen gulped great lungfuls of air. It's Paul, she screamed, it's Paul. On all sides, the shout went up, why, it's Paul. Let's see, okay, right here. On that side, on the left side, kind of in the middle, it says, Grandpa's voice was as strong as a tow rope. That's a simile, isn't it? Because it's comparing two things. It's comparing Grandpa's voice to a tow rope, and it uses the word as. So that's what we call a simile. Why do you think the author chose to compare his voice to a tow rope? Well, probably what he was doing was when he was talking, when he was kind of yelling, God help you, Paul, you're almost home. Like a rope pulling him in, just encouraging him that last little bit. That was a good thing that the author did, I think. What do you think Paul and Maureen are thinking as their eyes meet? Remember it said that it was like nobody else was there except them and Phantom. What do you think they were thinking? We did it. They were probably thinking, we did it. What does Grandpa mean by saying that he swam the whole way with Paul? Because he didn't. Grandpa didn't really swim, but he probably felt like he did. Have you ever watched somebody run, or you watch something and then you kind of like, whoa, man, it makes me feel like I did it. You probably haven't ever done that, but I have. Is Grandpa proud of Paul? And how do you know? He says he's the most wonderful and craziest youngin' in the world. Have you ever been called a youngin'? I've been called a youngin' a long time ago. I haven't been called a youngin' in a long, long time. All right, let's get our work text out. Let's look. There's actually 3 pages today, but we're not going to do all 3 pages. We're going to do, well, sort of not going to do 3 pages. So let's look at, in your work text on page 68, that's the first page I want you to look on. Okay, you there? All right, there are 8 questions or partial questions or phrases, and then you have to choose the answer. There's 1 answer on each. Now, if you see the picture at the bottom of Paul riding his horse, and there's a purple box right next to it. It says, an effect is something that happens. A cause is why that happens. Okay? Cause and effect. And that's what you're going to do. It's really, really easy. But I'm not going to help you with this page because this page is going to be a graded page. So I'm going to grade that one. So before you do that page, let's look at page 69. Now, do you have a schedule at home? Are you on a particular schedule? Do you go to bed at the same time? Do you wake up at the same time? Do you eat at the same time? Do you do school at the same time? Homeschoolers tend to have a little bit less strict schedules than people who have to go to public school, but we keep a pretty tight ship around my house, so we have a pretty good schedule that we go by. So a schedule is a plan to get your jobs done, to get something done. It gives an order of events, kind of, you might call it even an itinerary, a daily itinerary. That's just a fancy name for a schedule. All right, look at that big green box right there on page 69. See it on the left-hand side of the green box, it gives times. It starts at 5:30 a.m. and it goes all the way down to 2 p.m. All right, and then it tells what's going to happen at these particular times. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you these questions down here at the bottom. You don't have to write the answers in. This is just something I want you to say, but I want you to say the answer out loud before I give the answer. Okay? All right, here we go. So on number 1, we're going to use that schedule at the top, to answer the question. So Paul told Maureen to be at Dominion Point on a fresh pony at 10 o'clock, what would her job most likely be? Did you say getting the ponies into the pens or something like that? Because if you'll look up at the schedule, if she had to be there at 10, well, at 10 o'clock, they were going to put the ponies, they were going to herd the ponies into the pony penning grounds. So if he told her to be there at that point, then that's most likely what she was going to be doing. Number 2, if it had taken Paul until 10:30 to drive the Phantom and her colt to Tom's Point, what would have happened? Did you say something like he wouldn't have gotten him? He would have been left behind? Because if you'll look at the schedule up there, the ponies are penned at 10:30. And so if it had taken Paul until 10:30 to drive Phantom and her colt to Tom's Point, it would have been too late. Look at number 3. The ponies are driven across the channel at low tide. Circle the time for low tide on pony penning day. Did you choose 9:45 a.m.? Yeah, because the schedule says ponies driven into the water and herded across the channel to Dominion Point. So that means that would be low tide because that's when they get them over. What activity takes place in the afternoon? An auction, because afternoon would be p.m. And number 5, list the crews in the order they do their jobs. Penning, roundup, boating. I don't know why there's 2 roundups, I guess. Okay, so let's list them in order. Which one would come first? Roundup. Up at the top, 6:20 a.m. You got roundup. What would happen after that? Boating. Because the very next time, which will be 3 hours later at 9:20 a.m., there you go with the boat. And what happens next? Another roundup crew just 10 minutes later at 9:30. And then what happens last? The penning crew, which would be at 10 a.m. That's the schedule. All right, let's look at the next page. This will be the last page, and then I'm going to have you do the other cause and effect page by yourself. All right, on page 70. Now, there's only 5 things to do on this page, but we're going to do this together, okay? Now, it says running free, okay? I'm going to read it, and then we're going to answer. Actually, let's do this. I've changed my mind. I want you to pause it, and I want you to read running free at the top. And then as soon as you're finished reading it, turn this back on. Okay, did you finish reading Running Free? All right, so let's look at the directions at the bottom. You're going to need a couple of different colors. You can use a crayon, a marker, or a colored pencil if you have any of those. So you're going to need blue, red, and that's all, just blue and red. Okay, number 1, circle in blue the name of the people who brought horses to the Americas. Now, I want you to go up there and use your blue or whatever color you have and circle the name of the people who brought the horses to the Americas. Did you circle Spanish explorers at the top? They're the ones who brought the horses over in the first place. Number 2, keep your blue pencil out. Underline in blue the sentence that tells why they brought these horses. This is the sentence you should have underlined. If you don't have it, pause it until you get it. On horseback, they could cover great distances, claiming the land for Spain. So basically, it would help them get around faster. Number 3, circle in red the words that tell what made Indian tribes more powerful. You might need to pause it to find this one. Did you get it down on the bottom of the left-hand side? Owning horses made tribes more powerful. You circle that. All right, number 4. Underline in red the sentence that tells what happened to the wild horses after the pioneers came. You might need to pause it until you find this one too. Did you underline in red the wild horses were soon hunted, trained, and sold? That's in the middle on the right-hand side. All right. The last thing I want you to do, you're going to need to use your reader and go to the glossary in the back. I want you to look up that word dwindle. Look that word up right quick and then write your definition down. But while you look it up, you pause this right quick because I want to make sure you write the right definition down. Okay, did you find it in your glossary? The word dwindle. It means to become smaller. Is that what you wrote? Okay, I hope so because that was the answer. Okay, so your assignment then is to do page 68 for a grade. And if you need any help, send me a message. Okay, that'll be all for today.